Southeast Mortgage, the official home loan lender of the Georgia Bulldogs, presents the official podcast of Dawgs on Demand on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. On today's program, we'll give you the latest news from the world of University of Georgia athletics and more. And now, from the broadcast studios of Dawgs on Demand, here's your host, Chris Hall.
Touchdown! All right, Chris Hall here with you on Dawgs on Demand on Facebook and Instagram and on YouTube. It's good to have you with us on our program today. Bryce Koon from 247 Sports. He's a color analyst for Mercer University football. He does play-by-play. The guy just, you're a one-man marketing band, Bryce. How you doing today? Good to have you with us today on our program.
Oh, Chris, it's good to be back with you. And yeah, we're, rocking and rolling right here in the middle of football season. A lot of people don't realize, but Mercer is highest ranking in program history, number 11 in the country. And we've got a really big game up in Chattanooga, a top 15 FCS matchup that'll go a long way in deciding a lot of stuff. So football in the state of Georgia is very, very competitive, both at FBS and FCS level.
Now, are you enjoying doing the color analyst? I know you're working with a great guy, Rick Caldwell. He's a great guy. Have you done that before? And are you getting into it? You enjoying being on that side of the mic?
Yeah, I've done play-by-play mostly, and then have done color here and there. But I enjoy it because it lets me, take a breather and talk about the game, and that's what I love. I like, talk about the schematics and why what happened worked or why it didn't work. And so it's a different vantage point. And Rick's a Mercer Hall of Famer, so you got to let him carry the torch and continue to do that. It's been a lot of fun. Enjoy those guys down there.
Yeah, good experience. I know. All right, well, we're going to talk a little bit about University of Georgia stuff. I don't think there's much need really to go over the Vanderbilt game. We were in the stadium for that game. Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt has a better team than they've had in the past few years and came in actually with a 3-2 record to play Georgia. But Georgia's so loaded. And Vanderbilt, they've have some pieces here and there and Charlie Lee, he's a good coach. I think if the guys in Nashville are going to be patient with him, I think he's going to produce maybe a better program for Vanderbilt in the years to come. Just a dominating win. Georgia 55-0 over the Commodores. Stetson Bennett had a good day, throwing for 289 yards. A typical Stetson Bennett type game. But I tell you, the two guys that really caught my eyes, we were sitting in the stands. One of them, Darnell Washington. I mean, all of a sudden, this dude, I don't know if it's all of a sudden, but man, did he have a day on Saturday. He's a huge human being, but boy, he's so fluid and made some great catches. And Carson Beck came in the fourth quarter. He had a great fourth quarter. So, I'm sure you were busy when the game was going on, but I know you kind of caught up with it later. So at this point in the season now, here we have Georgia off this week. Then you face Florida, and then that Tennessee game looms out there. What are your impressions at this moment for the Georgia Bulldogs?
Well, first off, talking about Darnell Washington, I think we can all agree that's an offensive lineman who's just a little bit more skilled than some of the guys. This guy is huge, and obviously he can become a big target. Kind of going back to that game, I've been really impressed with the emergence of Dejon Edwards, over the past couple of weeks, dating back to the Missouri game. I had the chance to watch him when he was in high school down in Colquitt County. You and I both know that is a talent-rich portion of the state when you get down below the gnat line, as we say in Georgia, when you go down there. And then Branson Robinson. I mean, we saw the pictures of what this kid looked like coming in, but he's been very impressive. Very, very impressive. So, you look at the schedule. I think the bye week comes, obviously, each and every single year, obviously, before the Florida game. But this is a really well-timed bye week. I think there's some nicks and some cuts that they really want to kind of get healed. Because I think when you look at the beginning, and I was telling someone this on our show the other day, I said, it's so funny that we sit here in July and August, we say, Georgia's schedule's so easy, and all these people have easy schedules. Did we think Mississippi State would be as good as they are? I mean, Mike Leach has them playing well. Kentucky, do we think Tennessee would be arguably, for a lot of people think Tennessee's the best team in the country right now? I mean, so I think when you look at the remaining schedule, that gauntlet of Florida, Tennessee, Mississippi State, and Kentucky, how do you weather that? I mean, that's your season right there.
Yeah.
You've been building up. So if Georgia can get to a spot where they get healthy coming into this break, I think Florida's a really flawed team. I think you're going to be able to work on some things. But when you get in that November 5th game, which, I mean, College game day is probably going to be in Athens. It's going to be the biggest game. I was having this conversation, Chris, and I think it's kind of worthy of talking about, and a lot of your fans are going to want to know is, what's the biggest game in Athens in recent memory? I kind of go back to when they hosted Notre Dame back in 2019. I think Tennessee is going to match that, if not more. I mean, just really with the magnitude of the game in Athens. So I'm excited to see what they do the rest of the way. Everyone's talking about the Darlings, Tennessee right now, and that's fine. Georgia fans kind of like it that way, especially my dad. My dad's a big Georgia fan. He said, keep talking about everybody else. We just want to keep cruising along. And you don't see that often as the number one team in the country.
Right. Absolutely. And as you mentioned, Georgia continues to be number one in the coaches poll, the AP poll. But there are a lot of individuals, like you mentioned, these ESPN analysts and Kirk Herbstreit and different guys, even Aaron Murray has Ohio State as their number one. And Herbstreit has Ohio State number one. And then David Pollack from Georgia, of course, a great Georgia player, analyst for ESPN. He has Tennessee as the number one team in the country. So, I was talking with someone the other day, and, the big hype has already started for Georgia and Tennessee, but Georgia still has to play Florida. And, it's a rival game. It's that game, and if you could sneak into the locker room there in Gainesville, and Billy Napier talking to his team, he said, man, wouldn't we love to, put a monkey in this wrench for the University of Georgia, and let's go out there and beat them and knock them off their pedestal. I don't think that's necessarily going to be a pushover. Now, Georgia's more talented. Georgia should win. They'll be favored big. But, man, it's the SEC. It's just,
you never know.
You just never know. And so I think that's probably Coach Smart's message to his team. Don't listen to that rat poison about the Tennessee game. Don't listen to all of that. Man, we've got to play a talented Florida team, and they have pieces that are very talented. In fact, I kind of thought about this the other day. We were in the stadium for Kent State, for the Kent State game, and I forget the quarterback for Kent State, but he was good. I mean, he was good, had a great day against Georgia. And I was thinking probably he's the best quarterback that Georgia has faced this year, the kid from Kent State. But what do you have coming up next on the Georgia schedule? You have Anthony Richardson from Florida. He's up and down, not, the hype's not quite matching what it was earlier in the season for Anthony. Then you got Hendon Hooker, who's on, a lot of people's Heisman Trophy list. Then you have Will Rogers from Mississippi State, and then you have Will Levis from Kentucky. So Georgia's going to face some pretty good quarterbacks now coming up. And when you have a good quarterback and you have a halfway decent, offense around him, that can be dangerous, right?
Yeah. No, I mean, you look at Kentucky, for example. I mean, the game they didn't have Will Levis, they struggled against. I think it was Mississippi State they ended up losing to. So it's one of those things that when you look at quarterback play in the college football level, it's you live and die. I mean, look, you can have a great defense, you can have great running backs, you can have great offensive line, but if you don't have a guy that's a playmaker, and Georgia fans should know this more than anything, when you don't have a guy that's a playmaker, it doesn't matter how well everyone else is, you got to have that to be able to compete and win a championship. So, it's interesting because you brought that up about not overlooking Florida. Tennessee is the same situation because they're on the same day that Georgia and Florida playing, they're playing host to Kentucky. And so, they can't overlook a Kentucky team that, Kentucky and Florida are obviously, played earlier this year. I think Kentucky's the better team there. Obviously, they showed it. But those are two teams that would love nothing more than to spoil everybody's plans. College game day, both schools fans of kind of and throw a wrench in this SEC East race, which, if you let bygones be bygones, you just kind of run it on paper. You would think it's going to be decided on October or November the 5th. So, I think that the quarterback play, you're going to figure out what this young secondary, if they're really up to the task. I mean, that would be my biggest concern. I talked with a guy who is close with Georgia's program, and he said that's the one thing they don't know. Malachi Starks, ridiculously talented young man. Tyke Smith, who's continued to work back from his injury and was a highly touted transfer when he came in. Keely Ringo, I mean, really, how good is he? I think that's a question, and Georgia fans might not like this, but we all remember him for the national championship pick six. But like, how good is he really? Like, this is a big year for him to see if he can go to the NFL. And so how good is he really? And you're going to figure out that gauntlet of quarterbacks. I mean, look, Richardson is not going to let it fly as much, but man, he's going to run the football. Hendon Hooker's going to do both of them very well. Will Levis is a very experienced quarterback. And then, Mike Leach is the oddball that he is. When he gets a quarterback in that knows how to run his system, he's had success everywhere. And Will Rogers is that. So when they you got to go down there with the cowbells. It's not going to be easy at all. So it's going to be a fun end of the season to watch how Georgia fares. And if they emerge from it victorious the whole way through, I think it says a lot about where this program is going into Atlanta and wherever they go from there.
Yeah, if they run this gauntlet undefeated, they certainly are the number one team in the country at that point. Anyway, and then we did mention Georgia Tech, a revitalized program now under Brent Key and playing really good. And, we were talking before we got on our program today, boy, wouldn't it be cool if Georgia Tech was 8-3, undefeated from this point on, and Georgia's undefeated, and we have game day in Athens for a Georgia Tech rivalry game. That would be great, wouldn't it?
Yeah, no, that'd be fun to see. And, fans for Georgia Tech would love that. As crazy as the season's gone for Georgia Tech, they still control their own destiny to get to the ACC title game. I mean, they are 3 wins away from getting to a bowl game, and their division is, it's probably the worst division in Power 5, but it's still there to win. And so, there's just no easy game. And you mentioned it earlier, Chris, when you said that this is the SEC. You really never know. And so it's going to be interesting to see how these things play out.
And I look back because I was kind of thinking this was true. In the last 10 games, Tennessee and Vanderbilt are 5-5, which is kind of interesting, that, of course, that's a huge rivalry. Now, it doesn't look like Vanderbilt has the horses to stay with Tennessee. Speaking of staying with Tennessee, I went back, I wasn't able to see Alabama, Tennessee. I was able to hear it as we were coming home from Georgia the other day. Went back and looked at it. It looks like Tennessee runs a play every 5 seconds. It's go, go, go. Yeah. And those wide receivers, they're so fast and they get so spread out that you have one-on-one coverage. Boy, that's tough. Alabama had a horrible time trying to corral those wide receivers, and Hooker was right on, he was on target for most of the game. For me, I've already gamed out the game plan for Georgia, Tennessee. Georgia's got to run the ball, control the clock, keep the ball out of the hands of the offense of Tennessee. And then when Tennessee has it, they really need to put pressure on Hendon Hooker if that's possible. He throws it so quickly. But, if Georgia does that, and listen, Tennessee gave up 49 points. Now they scored 52, but their defense gave up 49 points to Alabama. Now, Alabama's offense may be a tad better than Georgia's, but not much better. So you would think Georgia can put up some points. I know we're kind of leaping ahead here with Georgia and Tennessee. But I think you sit here, Georgia's got a shot if they don't have one of those games. And maybe they got all that out of their system, with Kent State and Missouri. It's going to be a lot of fun. And in college football, a lot of fun.
Oh, man. And I tell people, we look at a schedule going into a week and we're like, this game may be okay, but there's not a lot of great games. And what happens? We go to bed Saturday night saying this was the best Saturday of the year, stuff like that. And, obviously not getting too far ahead and looking at this game, but I agree with you. I think that, they're going to have to do what you said offensively. Defensively, it's really hard to sack Hendon Hooker because he does not have the ball in his hand for a long amount of time. I think also, too, you're going to have to look at the fact that you're going to have to create, and I think this is a Kirby Smart buzzword, you're going to create negative plays and chaos. You're going to have to create negative plays, turnovers, because I'll just say this. Everyone loves Tennessee. You can't win a championship giving up 49 points to teams like that. If Alabama and Tennessee play again in Atlanta, I think Alabama wins. I just do. And I think Alabama's a very flawed team. I think they are, but you can't play with fire like that over and over again. And Georgia fans have seen that. Every single time Georgia has got to the cusp of, before last year, of getting to a chance to go to a championship or win one, it's been one or two things that said, hey, this is not up to par with this. We need to get better. And so I think that Tennessee, look, Josh Heupel, great coach. I mean, to be able to do what they're doing is I don't want to take anything away from them. But Alabama has a lot of flaws, and I think Georgia's more well-equipped, like you talked about, with a probably better offensive line, better stable of running backs to go to be able to kind of slow the game down. You're not going to stop Tennessee. I think you're going to have to slow them down a little bit.
Yeah, and Alabama scored 24 against Texas A&M.
Mm-hmm.
And they scored 49 against Tennessee, and they scored 20 against Texas, and so there's a lot of things you can look at, but we don't want to get ahead of ourselves, even though we are. At least the Gators are still out there. Now, that game will be on Saturday, October 29th, 3:30 p.m., of course, down in Jacksonville, Florida. It'll be on CBS. And so Georgia getting and I think Coach Smart said, they're going to practice early in the week. He's going to let the guys go for a couple of days to go home or, relax or do whatever, and then get back at it. For Florida. I just perennially, I don't like the Jacksonville thing. I'm sorry. I don't know who started that, where it started, why it started. I'd love to see home and home with Georgia and Florida. Georgia playing in the swamp in Gainesville when those teams are, like maybe undefeated or fighting for this. That'd be so cool. And to have Florida at Sanford Stadium, that would be so cool. I know Mercedes-Benz says, hey, we'd love to have the game every now and then. In Atlanta. I don't know. What is your opinion on? I don't like that Jacksonville thing. I don't know who started that and why they started it, but you get beyond the layers and what you're going to find. Follow the money.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, it's all about money. And I think, there's a certain aspect I've been to the game once, and from a fan's perspective, it's fun. Like, it's a cool atmosphere. I know every single year my wife went to Georgia, so every single year, that's their fall break. So students get out earlier. They get to go down, St. Simon's. They make their way down to Jacksonville. And I think, obviously Kirby Smart's not a big fan of it being played down there. I think that he's made his point clear on that. I think, with the recruiting changes that if they're willing to make, it would surprise me if this game, and this is just my perspective, it would surprise me if they ever really move it because of the money involved and the willingness that we saw recently with whoever's the designated host team gets to host recruits at that game. Right. That was the biggest thing. You were taking away, an official visit weekend from schools. If they change that, it's going to be hard to see. I think, Kirby Smart's going to continue to push for it. But, there is a certain aspect of, Gainesville to Jacksonville is a lot closer than Athens to Jacksonville.
Yeah.
So it makes sense. And that's also I've had a group with a couple of guys who are from Jacksonville. And they said that's such a big source of income for that weekend for that city, and so it's going to be hard for the city of Jacksonville to let go where there really is no premier college football around you except for Gainesville. You have the Jaguars, but they're not obviously. I mean, they're better, but they're not a big moneymaker for you. So I think this is one of the big sources of income. And so what it does for that area, there's a lot, like you said, there's a lot of layers. And to the casual, we're just sitting here, vibing off one another and talking about it. We don't like it or we like this. There's so many layers, political, all different type of stuff that you have to go through to be able to move that game. And it's an experience. I'll tell you this, it's an experience for sure. And the fans love it. So it's going to be kind of hard for them to move that game.
And there's a lot of Kool-Aid consumed, before
a lot of Kool-Aid. Mm-hmm. Yeah, the world's largest Kool-Aid party.
Yes,
there you go.
Yeah. You're not supposed to say that other now. They don't want you to say that other thing.
No.
So, coming up in the SEC this coming week, Saturday, 12 noon, you have UT Martin in a money game taking on Tennessee. That'll get out of hand probably pretty quickly on the SEC network. 3:30, you have Ole Miss at LSU. Now, that'll be an interesting game. Ole Miss, number 7 in the country, traveling to Baton Rouge. LSU, coming off a big win this past weekend over Florida down in Gainesville. That'll be an interesting game. For some odd reason, I love Lane Kiffin. I don't know why. I shouldn't. I love his dog. His dog's got his own Instagram page. For some odd reason, I love Lane Kiffin. I think he's a breath of fresh air for college football. But I don't know. This may be a tough game for Ole Miss.
I think Ole Miss is really, really good offensively. Defensively, if you go back and look what they gave up to Auburn, it was a little concerning, like alarming. Some of the numbers, yards per carry was one of the highest that Auburn's had against, each year or this year so far. But I think when you look at LSU, one, Baton Rouge is a tough place to play. One of the hardest, best environments in college football. LSU is not as talented as they have been in recent years. And a large part of that was kind of, the lack of recruiting and some of the things going on with that Orgeron before. But I'm telling you, Brian Kelly is the guy down there. Like, I love that hire. He's a winner. He has won with less elsewhere. When you give him the reins at a place like LSU, money, arguably, if you've ever been down there and seen the best facilities, people say in college football, I mean, it's ridiculous. I think this is really the makings of this could be a really big win for LSU. Yeah. They're only 5-2. They're a quiet 5-2. No one's really talked about LSU all year. It's Jaden Daniels. Can he throw the ball? Well, he goes out and accounts for 6 touchdowns. Chris, the last guy to do that for LSU, the only other guy in the past 20 years, Joe Burrow. And he did pretty good at LSU, and he's doing pretty good in the NFL. So I like that game. It's going to be a test. If LSU can slow it down, they've got some really good running backs. They have 2 freshman tackles, a left tackle and a right tackle, are true freshmen. And they're playing out of their minds. So, and then they have former, the brother of former Georgia defensive end outside linebacker Azeez Ojulari. His little brother BJ is a really good player, going to be a draft prospect this year. So that game is going to be a lot of fun. And like we said, you added the fact of all the crazy Cajuns down in Louisiana getting ready for that game. There's a lot of Kool-Aid there too, I'm pretty sure. So
and fortunately for Ole Miss, it's a 3:30 game. If it was a night game,
nighttime down there,
lights out. That'll be on CBS. Then you have a game that you really have to love Vanderbilt and Missouri to watch this one. Vanderbilt traveling to Missouri. That'll be a 4:00 game on the SEC network. Then at 7:00, Mississippi State at Tuscaloosa to take on Alabama. Now, that'll be a lot of fun. I mean, you got Mike Leach and Will Rogers and that group from Mississippi State coming into a Alabama team who's at least have, if not physically, their egos are bruised, certainly after that Tennessee game. Boy, that'll be an interesting game. If Mississippi State can hang for a half, with Alabama, you never know. What do you think?
Yeah. This is a game traditionally, you see Alabama come in and just run all over, just bulldoze an opponent after they get beat. And I've said this on our show a lot. I think that it's time to understand that what Alabama's doing, the penalties, the lack of discipline, it's not fluky. It's probably just who they are. It's probably who they are. So this might shock some people, but I really do think, I don't know if we're going to see Alabama run away with this. I don't think that they're what they used to be. And look, what they used to be is the crown jewel of college football. I mean, one of the greatest dynasties we've ever seen, if not the best. So I think they're knocked down a peg this year. And so I wouldn't be surprised to see Alabama still win this game and win it by double digits. I just don't think this is the game that you're going to see. We've seen every single year when Alabama loses a game, you always feel bad for the next team that's got to play them. Because Mississippi State does some really good things, and they are tough to defend. Like we talked about, when Mike Leach gets his guys, his athletes out there, the air raid's hard to defend. I mean, it's a tough thing to defend, and we just saw what happened when a team threw on Alabama. So
it'll be an interesting game, and that'll be at 7:00 on ESPN. Speaking of Alabama and its penalty problems, 17 total penalties in the Tennessee game, and a lot of that had to do, I'm sure, with the environment, with the fans in the stands. And by the way, of course, after the game, the Tennessee fans storm the field, tear down the goalpost. They get fined $100,000 by the SEC, and now the Poro Athletic Department from the University of Tennessee is asking fans to make donations to buy new goalposts. And this is a program that generates millions of dollars every year. I hadn't wrapped my head around that one yet, but anyway, it is what it is. The 7:30 game on the SEC network, again, it'll be kind of an interesting game. You got Texas A&M and South Carolina. And South Carolina with the big win against Kentucky. South Carolina's got some talent. That'll be interesting. Jimbo Fisher from Texas A&M, I saw, there's a lot of rumblings about him and grumblings about him. But if you want to fire Jimbo Fisher and buy out his contract, it'd take $84 million. at the moment this year to do that. But I don't think that's on the table. But
Yeah,
what do you think?
yeah.
Texas A&M at South Carolina? That sounds kind of interesting.
I think A&M's such a flawed team, they're going to make it interesting. I think they're better on paper, obviously, than what South Carolina is. But, this South Carolina team's a lot different than what Georgia fans watched, a couple of weeks ago or a month ago. I mean, this is a South Carolina team that's building some confidence. They got a big road win against Kentucky, and so they're feeling good about themselves. And how they go is how Spencer Rattler goes. He's been such an up and down player. If he plays a mistake-free football game, I think that you could see this, be a close game in the fourth quarter. You said it earlier, Chris. I mean, look, it's hard to win in the SEC. It's really hard to win on the road. South Carolina, I go back to, I think it was 2012, 2013, when Georgia used to go play South Carolina towards the end of Steve Spurrier's years. I hated those games because it was one of the best environments in college football. The white towels are going crazy. And so I think the students are going to be more into it. The fans are going to be really excited about it, and it'll be an exciting game to watch. And I hope it's close. I hope it's close because I'll be done with calling my game, and that'll be a game that I want to tune into. So
I gotcha. Yeah, I'll be there. Much to my wife's chagrin, she says another football game.
Come on, yeah.
But see, how we do it at the Hall household is that we balance football with the Hallmark Channel. And so eventually it evens out.
Sounds like you need a 2 TV setup.
Yeah, we do. Some other interesting games out of the conference. One that, you cover Georgia Tech for 247 Sports. Virginia at Georgia Tech on Thursday evening, 7:30 p.m. on ESPN. A night game for Georgia Tech, a rejuvenated Georgia Tech football team. Go Jackets. Let's keep the thing rolling here. Georgia Tech's favorite in this game. It should be kind of interesting. You think the stadium will be packed out for Virginia?
Yeah, I mean, talking with some fans, the players have really called for the students to really pack it out. They did a great job a couple weeks ago when they hosted Duke, who at the time was 5-1 on the season. It's just one of those things that I think that there is and we talked with a couple players this week during media availability, and excuse the pun, but there is a buzz. There really is around campus of a genuine interest in classes. People were talking about, hey, you guys have won 2 straight games. Chris, I found this stat and I tweeted it, and you and I were joking about Twitter, how desolate of a place it can be, but a necessity at times. I tweeted this out because it even caught me by surprise. This will be the first time since they beat Florida State in week 1 of the COVID year, if they can win this game on Thursday, that they'll be over 500.
Wow.
That's a long time.
Wow,
That's really a long time. And so, you think about, in the span of what Georgia's done since 2020, I think this is a game that's winnable and a program that desperately needs something to cheer for. And look, it's good to see. I mean, it's really good to see that these fans have something to cheer for. And so, a Thursday night atmosphere, students will be on campus already. I know we're doing a tailgate for it, doing a little live show that'll be a lot of fun there from the varsity, and then walk across and get ready for the game. So it'll be a lot of fun.
A lot of fun. And of course, Georgia Tech now has a new athletic director, assistant athletic director from the University of Alabama, Jay Bratt. Is that correct?
Jay Batt. Yeah.
Batt. Okay. I made him a Brad. I'm sorry. He's Jay Batt from Alabama coming to Georgia. So Georgia Tech. So that's interesting. And go get them Jackets. I want to see a strong Georgia Tech team. I really do. Yeah. I'm a Bulldog fan, from way back. But I want to see a good, strong Georgia Tech team. Other interesting games, Iowa at number 2, Ohio State. That's the Fox game Saturday at 12 p.m. Could Iowa raise its ugly head and do some damage against
Iowa? Ohio? Score? That's what we need to know. Can Iowa play offense?
I know. ACC game, kind of interesting, and also has national implications. Number 14, Syracuse, undefeated. Syracuse, taking on number 5, Clemson. Now that's the ABC game at 12 p.m. Syracuse having a decent year, and then they go and take on Clemson. It'll be in Death Valley, but what do you think about that game?
Clemson playing there is so hard. I mean, Clemson rarely loses on their home field, and I'm making sure to fact check myself on this before I say it, but The last time this is okay, so this is true. The last time that Syracuse started 6-0 undefeated, they went. It was their last undefeated season in 1987. They went 11-0 and they won the Sugar Bowl. So I think that this is a Syracuse team that is Dino Babers done a great job up there. They actually have a transfer quarterback from Mississippi State. He's playing quarterback for him, Garrett Schrader, and so it's a cool story. But I'll pull a Lee Corso and say, not so fast, my friend. I think the dream comes to an end of an undefeated season. Clemson is, from the time that I saw them, I got to see them play Georgia Tech in Atlanta opening weekend. They've really settled into who they are. DJ's played a lot better. They've kind of just gelled with the new coordinator, new staff, and they're obviously the clear-cut front runner in the ACC. And
then most likely will make the playoffs, college football playoffs.
Which is, they're like a quiet. I mean, they're kind of sitting on the edge, but one of Ohio State or Michigan probably won't make it.
Yeah, one of those top 4 teams probably will fall by the wayside, and Clemson will make it. Also Saturday, number 20, Texas at number 11, Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State losing, surprisingly, to TCU last week. That'll be the 3:30 game on ABC. And then an interesting game out west, number 9, UCLA at number 10, Oregon. And that
Georgia
Oregon
fans better wear their green for that one.
I'm telling you, since Georgia dismantled Oregon, Bo Nix has found himself. He's playing tremendous, and Oregon's playing very well. UCLA at Oregon. What do you think about that one?
After only scoring 3, not scoring a touchdown against Georgia, they have put up more than 40 points after that, each of their next couple games. So, I think it's more of a standard of how good Georgia was for that one day. I mean, obviously Georgia has got some things they got to clean up, but I think they played a perfect game, like an absolutely perfect game against Oregon. But UCLA, Chip Kelly has them playing very inspired, and this is something too. And we always have the SEC bias. I grew up in Georgia. You obviously have been around the state for a long time as well. We have this SEC bias of everyone is not even close. And I'll tell you, it's probably true. The SEC is very, very good. Yeah. It's good to see the Pac-12 starting to make a mark again. To me, you have to go back all the way to when Oregon played Auburn in the national title game to really say they had a real contender. Before that, it was Pete Carroll at USC. So to have a top 10 matchup like this, out on the West Coast, Oregon and UCLA are a couple programs. College football as a whole is better when those two programs are better. And there's a couple programs that are down that once they get better, it's like that's better for the sport. It's better for media. It's better for fans to be able to watch a couple games and different games on Saturdays.
Hey, it kind of warmed my heart to see Utah beat Southern Cal last week.
That didn't hurt my feelings. I'll tell you that. Yeah, that didn't hurt my feelings. I was okay with that one.
Utah is not a bad football team either, and so that was kind of interesting. Well, Bryce, we could sit here all day and talk about college football, but we don't have the time to do that. You're a busy man, and we got stuff to do as well. One other thing, I know we're big Braves fans. Seriously,
it was a clunker,
we make
wasn't
it that far, and then oh well, there's always next year.
Always. Hey, you can't win it every year. That's okay. It's okay.
I know, but we're supposed to. I tell my wife that. She said, you can't win every. I said, well, we're supposed to win every year.
Now, Chris, you're starting to act like those people on Twitter now. We're going to have to shut you down.
Are we going to get Dansby back?
I hope so.
Yeah.
I hope so. Mm-hmm.
All right, Bryce. Good to have you with us today. Awesome. And we look forward to talking with you again very soon about college football and other stuff. Okay.
Sounds good, Chris. Appreciate it as always.
All right. Thank you, man.
Dawgs on Demand would like to thank Southeast Mortgage, the official home loan lender of the Georgia Bulldogs, for sponsoring our program today. When the time comes to finance or refinance your home, make the smart choice and get your home loan from Southeast Mortgage. Your friends at Southeast Mortgage are ready to help you. Visit southeastmortgage.com/UGA today for more information. Be sure to visit Dawgs on Demand on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube, and our great interactive website, dogsondemand.com. Join us for our next program as we keep you up to date with the latest sports news from the University of Georgia and more. Until then, be safe and go Dogs.